we need well, this isn't first, but it was the first one to be mentioned, so we'll talk about it. What does a schedule do for us? So Adam, what's it with you? What's the schedule for?
Basically, it tells you when things need to be happening by, like, start and end dates and time.
Good. So,
And also, I don't know if it inquires, but doesn't it also allow like buffer time, so just in case weather turns bad or something?
yeah. So if you're shooting Lord of the Rings over a year and a half, then your scheduling is complicated. You have a team of 20 people doing your scheduling for you. For the kind of things that we're talking about, the scheduling might be, right, we're going to film this afternoon. It's a valid piece of pre-production documentation. It's not an important one for what we're going to do today, but certainly when you come onto your bigger projects and your final projects, I would like to see schedules. So, good, okay, another one please, Emilio.
Screenwrites or screenplays.
Screen script, screenplay. Okay, so, Harley, what's your team's idea for the film?
We're just doing some ideas and then a bit of like some samples of like film and.
You're interviewing people, aren't you? So, if you're interviewing somebody, can you script that?
Not really, you just need to write questions out.
Good, okay. So, they can't script their idea, but they can write interview questions. Now, Eden, what's your group's idea?
Basically, it's like a factual thing where you're sort of taking on a bit of like a walkabout with a guy who's telling you about the difference between the both
The fourth wall.
film and digital.
So you need a script. You need a script for Mr. Film and you need a script for Mr. Digital, and you're actually going to need to do a fair bit of memorising of those scripts as well. So you two are essentially actors in your film, aren't you? So that is, so it's planned lines, I guess, or planned dialogue. Good, okay, another one. We'll go for someone different, just, oh, sorry, is there a question about these ones?
No, so it's just another thing.
Hold on to it, and if we don't mention it, I want to try some new people. So Nathan, how about you?
We've got the idea of a timeline from a few directors
Yes?
in one family and see how they change with film, so how the film changes them and then when it changes into digital, how that affects them.
So yours is scripted as well, isn't it? So yeah, you're also going to have a chunk of work to do on the script. What else, in terms of pre-production documents, might you want, Nathan? I heard that. It's all right.
Okay, locations. And
Good. Locations. So this is really important. So location plans. The best way to plan for a location is to go there, to take a camera, to take some pictures, listen. So you might find, for example, if you're shooting in the Castle Dairy, you go there and you look around it, and it looks amazing. It looks like a really good place to film. But what are the problems shooting in the Castle Dairy?
You want to do like be someplace where like private spaces and then others which are public.
That's part of the issue. But let's say we've got permission to film in the Castle Dairy.
It's like really solid walls that are really echoey.
It's echoey. What else might the audio problems be?
The cooker.
The kitchen. Kitchens are one of the worst places to film because pots and pans bang, there are extractor fans, there are radios on, chefs are talking constantly. Kitchens are a really bad place to record audio. There's lots of things to film, but audio is a nightmare. What's on the other side of the Castle Dairy?
Museum.
Not museum.
Building site.
Building site, which is currently vacant, next to the building site and the Castle Dairy. Separating it from the buildings on the other side. Not box.
Roads.
The roads. Busy road. 2 lanes of traffic going almost all day. That creates this kind of ambient hum that comes through the wall, which is very, very difficult to drop out. Yeah.
If using the boom microphone, it wouldn't like only get the audio from one side.
Audio is a really recording audio is complicated. It's not just as simple as that. The closer you can get a microphone, the more you'll cut out background noise because you'll drop the recording level as you get closer. But the quality of someone's voice, if I stand out in the corridor and talk at one volume and then come and talk at the same volume next to your ear, it's got a different kind of quality to it. And that's true of microphones as well. And when you're audio recording, we'll be keeping it fairly simple this year, but we'll keep it fairly simple in level 3 as well, because audio is a massive world of knowledge. But it's not quite that simple.
What would be learning about sound design like psychoacoustics and things like that?
In level 3, yes.
Right.
Yeah, not level 2. So, we're looking at ambient sound, ambient light. So what do I mean by ambient light? Natural light. So we'll give you some examples of natural light. The sun. What if natural wasn't literally just as simple as in the natural world? What if, when we say ambient light, what we mean is what's already there? So what else might there be?
Monitors.
Monitors, good.
Lights.
Lights in the ceiling, they might not be able to turn off. Street lamps, for example, very difficult to turn off. But that would be considered ambient light. So if you're filming upstairs in the castle dairy, and there's a street lamp through the window there casting this kind of fizzing orange colours onto somebody's face, that's not going to perhaps look very nice, especially not if you wanted to shoot a medieval banquet, for example. So ambient light is something that you need to weigh up, and ambient sound is something that you need to weigh up in any location. Now, somebody also said private and public access. Was that you, Harley? Who said private and public access?
Yeah.
So what do you mean by that, Emilio?
Like, if it's in a public place, you'll need a media pass or something, and you also need permission from council. But if it's private, you usually have to pay the person that owns it.
Right. So what we're looking at here is permission, really. Now, if you're filming Batman or has everyone seen 28 Days Later? So do you remember in the film Side by Side that we watched, they talked about shooting 28 Days Later and shutting down the City of London for 5 minutes at a time. And then they recorded constantly for those 5 minutes with 10 cameras. And they did that 3 days in a row, and that gave them 150 minutes of footage to use for this little kind of 2-minute sequence. To shut down the City of London costs tens of thousands of pounds to do, because you need people blocking off streets, you need permission. It is a massive undertaking and it's very expensive. It would be expensive if we wanted to shut down one of the streets in Kendal for a little while. But in terms of you going to the skate park and filming, which is also a public space, there's not going to be any problem with doing that. So there's a kind of sliding scale here of what's involved. And what's important, I think, is to just kind of try and be sensible and take a bit of responsibility for your choices. 2 years ago, one of our students, Beth, wanted to film her music video down in Preston, and she told me that she had permission for the location. So I said, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine. And a couple of days before she was due to go, it was only then that she told me that the location was an abandoned warehouse that was actually sealed off and that she'd found a way in. And she didn't actually have permission, she just assumed it was abandoned. Places that look abandoned are still owned. They may not be operated, they may not be managed, they may not be inhabited, but they are still owned. And without active permission, you're not allowed to film it. Why might you not be allowed to film in an abandoned warehouse?
Dangers.
What kind of dangers?
Like maybe broken glass.
Good.
Just not very stable.
Not stable, the actual building might collapse. Good. Anything else?
Wires.
Yep. Good. Chemicals. Old industry. Nails sticking out of floors and walls.
Asbestos.
Asbestos. Pigeon droppings. Enough pigeon droppings can actually create chemicals that are horrible to breathe. Old plaster can contain anthrax, which is a poison used for protecting horses, but is very, very toxic to people. Abandoned spaces can be extremely dangerous. which is why we need to know where you're going to go. The best way to do it is to, without going in to take pictures, is to, you need to have a dialogue with us as well, but if you're being sensible, then 9 times out of 10, 99 out of 100 will say, yeah, this is fun, and you can go and do it.
So saying that when I was looking for a 6-day page, I'd actually looked at the accounts to see how much it costs just to block a small gap, and it said, oh, it'd be £30 an hour.
Is that all? To block what?
To block like a semi, I wouldn't say BC road, but like semi-main road. So basically, if you're having a whole day, you've got to do it minimum hours and stuff as well.
I'm amazed it was that cheap, but that is cheap.
Yeah.
Why would you want to block a road?
If you like got seen with like a motorway or something, you could like have your own like cars come through, so you like decide specifically what you want in the shot, the colours of the cars go that match the colour of the grid.
And we've also got the health and safety issue, and if you can't control every vehicle in that stretch of film, then there's potentially some kind of very significant health and safety dangers there, aren't there? Okay, so for all kinds of reasons, permission is an important thing to get. A lot of the time people will just say yes. So for example, we've had students before who've gone up to the brewery and said, can we please film in the Vats bar before you open at lunchtime? The brewery said, fill your boots, go ahead, it's fine. And they've gone and they've made very good use of that environment. So I think having the gumption to go and ask for permission is a really positive thing to do, and will often give you very good results. So, okay, what else want we need? We've got schedule, scripts, or interview preparation, location plans. What else might we need? People. So how does that come into pre-production?
Because you need to like organise times when you need to make sure that everything
Times and availability, I put down with scheduling, but I think you are on something that we could say is part of pre-production. What else might it be?
like getting people to be here, getting them to listen to people.
Good. So,
Casting calls.
cast and crew. So I've given you a crew. You are in your crews. Cast is something that you'll either need to source within your team, such as Eden and Jack are going to be the cast in their film, or it's something you're going to need to source from outside your team. So the obvious place for that, of course, being the performing arts department. Last year, the students were very, very good at just going down, asking politely if anyone would be interested in being in this film or that film, and they got some really good performances out of it as a result. It's worth thinking about. For smaller projects, it may not be worth your time. It might just simply be worth that for the bigger projects. Okay, anything else? Yes, Andrew.
Cameras and equipment.
Good. So, I once worked on a kids' drama show called Desperados about a wheelchair basketball team.
Oh,
That we, there you go. That we filmed for about 2 months, mostly in an abandoned leisure centre. Not abandoned, a closed leisure centre. We spent 2 days preparing the kit for that. And that was getting out all the lights that we were going to need, testing every one of them individually, getting out both the cameras we were going to use, testing them individually and testing them together, doing lens tests with all the different lenses that we were using, the sound equipment, making sure that the sound connected to the camera adequately, testing the monitors and setting them up, preparing the dolly, preparing the track. All of these things we did in the 2 days beforehand. If you're going to a feature film, you might spend a week preparing the kit. Again, if you're looking at something like Lord of the Rings, you could spend a month preparing the kit. But absolutely, again, yeah, doing that.
Treatment.
Treatment, very good. What's a treatment, Adam?
It's basically like a summary, like a draft or something to give a broader idea without actually giving stuff away. So if you went to a company saying, oh, I need money for this, instead of them reading the whole script saying, oh, you can take this script right now and just make a film out of it and just say to them, they're not interested. So it's like protecting you and your like scripts and stuff.
Good. So treatment is, as Adam says, it's a summary of the film. And a good treatment might only be a couple of pages. It could be dozens of pages. But it will say in detail what the film is about. to the point where, let's say I wrote a treatment for a film and then I couldn't do the film, but I gave the treatment to Jared, that Jared would be able to go and make the film from that treatment and it would come out looking like my film. So let's say we were doing a film about fell running, Jared. I found 10 international fell runners to talk to. I found locations. I've done perhaps long-range weather forecasts. I could have talked about the look of the film, the cameras I'm going to shoot it on, the lenses I want to use, what I plan for music, what I plan for sound design. But if I then break my leg in 12 pieces and can't go and make the film, but give you that treatment, the information is there for you to go and make it. So the idea behind a treatment is to give something very specific and focused, which summarises the film. Absolutely, yes, and
On the preparation thing, on last week in BFI we had the set designer and costume design from World War Z.
Oh, okay, so what did you look at?
We're looking at like how long it took them to like cut, like do the whole thing.
Yeah.
And issues.
Months and months, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Wasn't it 3 or 4 months? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was just for the bit in Glasgow.
Absolutely. So that's what we're talking about there is probably, it's called production design. Or literally designing the production. This is where the arts department come in. There are loads of jobs in an art department which you almost never see about, never get to notice. But the art department, certainly on a drama or on a feature film, is a very, very big and integral part of it. If you ever watch the credits on a drama film, you'll see, for example, there might be a team of 20 carpenters. They're part of the art department. You could find standby props directors, you could find props buyers. A big feature film could easily have 100, 150, 200 people in the art department. Something like Harry Potter, within the production design, you will also have kind of subsections of things like building the creatures, which will be a separate part of the art department. So the art department is an absolute huge part, but again, for the films you're making, so for example, your little Western shootouts, you were talking about kind of floppy hats, weren't you? And that was about the limit of it. And they were effective because there's something in a floppy hat that says, I'm a cowboy or I'm a villain. And that works. And I actually think that's quite effective production design. By the time you come onto your final projects, I think we're going to be looking at something perhaps a bit more involved in that. If you're doing a documentary, you may have zero production design. If you're doing a drama, you may have quite significant production design. But it's definitely going to be part of it. Yeah. Okay, we're missing a couple of big ones. One really obvious one.
Right.
Not clients, I would lump that in with interview prep. Although you do need to contact contributors, so that's definitely kind of part of it. But I'm going to put that in with interview and scheduling.
Director going cast and crew on it.
Yep.
Investment.
No, not for what we're talking about, no. It's very closely linked to the script.
Idea?
No,
Budget.
not budget.
Shot list.
Shot list. Good. So, what's the shot list?
You can different forms. People have a different story that show like
What does a shot list do?
all the shots used and
All the shots that you're planning to shoot.
He's sort of trying to pull what's passed out.
So, it's all the shots that you're planning to film. But here's the important part of the shot list, in order that they're going to be filmed. So, is it the Two Towers, when the Riders of Rohan ride to the rescue of, you're right, Josh?
And showing this pen drive in the back of
Sorry. Is it the Twin Towers when Gandalf and the Riders of Rohan?
2 towers.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, yeah, ride to, yeah. So in that sequence, Riders of Rohan spent days getting to, is it Minas Morgul?
Yeah,
Minas Morgul, is that the
I
tower?
think that's.
Which one is it? Helm's Deep.
Helm's
Right,
Deep.
so they spend days getting to Helm's Deep, don't they? And they cut between Riders of Rohan and Helm's Deep fighting off the orcs, and back to the Riders of Rohan, back to the orcs, and back to the Riders of Rohan. When they filmed that, Do you think they filmed Riders of Rohan and then Helm's Deep, and then Riders of Rohan and then Helm's Deep? So how did they film it?
They would have filmed it all in one sequence and then edited.
So this is where a shot
All
list
the
comes in.
cameras.
When we're talking about a shot list, we might say shots for Lord of the Rings, it could be something like shot 420 through 460 is Riders of Rohan, and shots 100 through 140 could be Helm's Deep. But the point is that they are filmed in order of filming. So for you guys, when you're filming here, are you going to film Jack and then go back for a close shot of Jack and then a close shot of you, and then maybe you want an extra close shot of Jack and then an extra close shot of you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not. How are you going to do it?
Basically, we're just going to be like, same kind of thing, but like,
What opposite? Yeah. Change.
Because it's not going to be like Riders of Rohan and Helm's Deep.
No, it's
Riders of
going to
Rohan.
be separate. We're going to do it separately. Like, get his part in, do his shot, like his walk, then
Yeah.
do mine.
yeah.
Then we record us meet in the middle, basically.
Okay,
Then
so let's say you do 3 shots of Eden and you do 3 shots of you, Jack. Are you going to do 1 shot of Eden and 1 shot of Jack and then the second shot of Eden and the second shot of Jack?
No,
What are you going to do?
do it all together.
Good,
All
that's what we're talking about. So when you come to do your shot list, it might be something like shots 1, wide shot of Eden, shot 2, close shot of Eden, shot 3, extra close shot of Eden, shot 4, wide shot of Jack, shot 5, close shot of Jack, shot 6, extra close shot of Jack. So your shot list has them in order. Yes, Adam?
Storyboard is you want to say.
Yes, that's the other big one. Okay, so what is a storyboard, please?
It shows of what you want to find as the look. So if you want to have like a shot of lower angle, you record that, then you show the next shot by doing that.
Good. Okay, so it's a visual representation of the shots that you want to shoot. Coming back to this idea of a shot list, do you think a storyboard is in order of filming, like the shot list, or do you think that a storyboard is in the order of the script and the story?
Script and story.
Good, okay. So what we're talking about here then is probably starting with the script. When you've got your script, you can break that down into a storyboard. And when you have a storyboard, you then have essentially all the shots that you need. But when you've got those shots, then you can reorder them for your shot list to say, this is shot 1, 2, 3.
Do you do your treatment after the script or before?
Treatment is usually the very first thing, because if you're a professional filmmaker, then the treatment is how you start seeking out finance. Because normally you'd want a treatment and a script if you were looking for money. And again, coming back to Lord of the Rings, depending on the budget that you're after, you may need to do a huge amount of work to get there. Has anyone heard of a sizzle reel?
Yeah.
What's a sizzle reel?
Isn't it when like you've got like if you have made films for you like put together like kind of like you put some clips of your films together like as a reel?
Yes,
It's like,
kind of. What you're talking about is a show reel.
that's it, yeah.
So a show reel is when you put together highlights of the films you've made. How pleased am I about this, by the way?
I was just going to say, you just sneakily showing this off.
Yeah, what do you mean sneakily? Check out the blind, you guys. I gave Matt Burke a high five yesterday when he told me that this was now working.
What did you do if it just suddenly broke?
Don't break it.
Blame you.
I blame me.
It's a sort of like actually showing the storyboard and the actual film.
Sorry, say that again, Adam?
That type of reel you would.
Sizzle reel.
Yeah. Was it one was showing the film and storyboards and like all the stuff you shot?
No. So, I'm not going to tell you, I'm going to let you guess by watching it. So, a show reel is something that whether you are a cinematographer or whether you are a sound designer, a director, an actor, a production designer, a show reel is how you put together the best shots that you've done and say, this is my work. So it saves a potential employer having to go off and sit through hours of your material. You're giving them, say, 3 minutes of the very best shots. Amelia, let us hand up first. Hold on to that thought.
For the NFTS application, I had to make a show reel.
Cool. Great, good.
But I just like end up putting like whole shots and
is it basically everything uncut?
Not uncut. No. What you want to do is take your very best shots. So let's say you made 4 short films.
So is it like the best of what
Yes.
you've got and it's stuck into
Yeah.
the show?
And it's the stuff that you want to show the most impressive things. So let's say you've made a mask for a horror film and the mask took you ages and it looked really good. You want that mask in your show reel. You know, you're not going to leave it out, are you? Well, let's say you've got some really good handheld footage down the, you know, of somebody doing a dark slide or something. You want that in there. You want to show off the stuff which makes a prospective employer look at it and go, yeah, this is amazing.
Feels different in here about the like.
Yeah.
Feels good.
Yeah.
Just wait till we turn the lights.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I mean, yes, that's okay.
What are you doing? Can we watch side by side again with this? A bit like
Oh, I'd love to do that.
What?
Watch side by side again.
Labels on the third signatures are luminous.
looks tasty.
Doesn't make sense because I've got fire sometimes.
Why do you have edible plates? No, it's still like this, so then once you've aged them in like a dessert, you can eat it like
There are places where you can do it.
It's like crunchy.
Give me that book so I can read it. It just doesn't
I don't
really
have how to control it.
It's not hard to read though, it's not like, it's easy to read.
just my brothers. Outside.
It
It is connected to internet, isn't it?
No, somebody's pinched the network cable. Right. I'm not going to pinch that one. Jack, will pinch. Oh no, I can't pinch it.
It's always in the present.
Because no one's actually using it.
Because that's what it seems like, because you're always in the present. Because your priorities, whatever you're into it, anyway. That's how you can also get no, it's not like taste it.
No, it's not on the order. You can have it back in a minute.
Sorry, it's too big, but.
Simon,
Yes.
can we have that tap on Friday?
Do you have to do what?
Have tap on Friday.
Yeah, cat's great.
Oh.
Of course you
You're
do.
gonna read it every year.
We all disagree though.
Just do whatever. It's like that.
I was not in my house.
Okay. So, we're going to watch this. We're going to watch this, and then I want you to tell me what a sizzle reel is. All I'm going to tell you is that it was made by someone called Kevin Tanqueroan. Tanqueroan? I don't know how to pronounce his name. Somebody called Kevin, who wanted to direct the Hunger Games and didn't get the job. Didn't. This is not the person who directed the Hunger Games.
Hey man, I got something to tell you.
This guy.
It's not gonna direct.
After the Great Disaster, North America was divided into 12 districts. They are controlled by the all-powerful capital of Penang. To maintain their power, the capital holds an annual event that puts one boy and one girl from every district in a brutal game of life or death. Broadcast for the whole world to see.
Three,
My name is Katniss Everdeen, and I'm about to enter the Hunger Games.
Welcome, everybody, to the Capitol. During the days leading up to the games, this will be your home. You will have image consultations. And of course, battle training. So use your time wisely. And try not to get too close to your competition.
Learn from me. I wasn't the best because I could fight. I was the best because the crowd loved me. The crowd. And you'll win your freedom.
You can't. We stick together no matter what.
Get to the weapons, use them any way you can. I know you won't break the rules. They're on it.
Are you ready to begin?
It happens here, and it finishes here.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's dying times here.
So it's coming closer. Feel it. Die in the storm. Fight back! Coward! Fight back!
Wickedness. Ladies and gentlemen, place your bets.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
What do you think now?
I can sleep. I don't want to die tonight. And may the gods be ever in your favor.
Okay, so what is a sizzle reel?
The best of what to make something better. So he's collecting the best of films that he thinks is good for that, for the Hunger Games, and he's putting it in because he thinks it looks better.
He's trying to show his vision for what it will be.
Yes, those two are perfect. He's using other films that have gone before to show his vision for what he would do with the Hunger Games. Yes, Andrew.
I was going to say, he's using film from other films to edit it together to make it look like a film.
That's a sizzle reel. Okay, what films did you recognise? One?
I remember like the small kid reaching out. That was from like X-Men.
X-Men, okay. Harley?
There's one tiny clip from the area.
Good, okay. Adam?
Fifth Element.
Fifth Element, good. Chloe? Skins, absolutely, yeah. Andrew?
Lots of Harry Potter.
Lots of Harry
Oh,
Potter.
I was going to say it would be
Emilio?
prominently Harry Potter.
Twilight, yes.
What is it? Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. There's some X-Men. There's Apocalypto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a old film.
There's a huge amount in there, isn't there? So that's what a sizzle reel is. Yeah. So what he will have done then is he's recorded the voiceover. That part of it has been recorded deliberately for this. And and the rest of it, yeah, he sourced from other places. It's a staggering work of editing, isn't it? Hugely impressive piece. How long did it take you, honestly, before you worked out what was going on? I mean, the first time I watched it, I would say, how long is it? Like 4 minutes? It's 4 minutes 22. I would say it took me at least a minute before I worked it out.
I worked it out and it showed the first Harry Potter one.
I think I got it straight away.
Oh, I didn't get it straight away, that's good.
I thought it was just like gonna be like some footage he's put together himself, like what he's made.
No, I got it as soon as you saw a clip of one of the guys of the fourth Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I know where this is going.
But it's impressive though, isn't it? So what he will have done is he will have put together that sizzle reel because it's a really impressive, kind of powerful piece of to pitch something with. He will have written a treatment, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if he's put in that much effort to learn that he had at least partially scripted it as well. So he might have gone in with a couple of scenes scripted, along with his kind of ideal locations, his ideal cast, because he wanted that.
Is that
job.
what?
I agree
At
with
the end
some of his cast.
At the end, was that like the cast he wanted?
That was the cast he wanted.
Yeah.
So if he was given free rein to make that film, that's who he would have tried to cast.
I personally think Jennifer Lawrence was obviously a good choice for it.
Yeah.
The best
I
choice.
don't think she would have been as strong in it.
I think Josh Hutcherson would have been is a lot better than Zac Efron would have been.
Yeah.
Which one's
Zac
Josh
Efron would have been.
Which
Yeah,
character?
yeah.
Peter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Peter was really annoying. I've only seen the first film. Is it the third one out now, or is it the fourth one
Third
out?
one's out on the 20th.
Third one's out. Okay.
That's the one. That's
So-
the only one that was decent, in my opinion. The third one.
Oh, yeah.
That's in 2 parts.
Yeah,
Yeah, it looks good.
I like
It seems
the
like
first one.
every
But
film
it's
is
really
now,
alright.
every kind of franchise is going in 2 parts now.
Yeah. Why are they doing that?
Because they want, Avengers, they're going to.
Why are they doing that?
Because they want to make as much money as possible.
Age
Plus
of
it's,
Ultron.
plus it's like a big film, like what they want to do, and to get the
Fury is
story,
like-
to get the story through it, and to make more money, basically.
Yeah, more money. And it's also, if you think about it this way, to put all of this together for a feature film, to get really big names in your cast, to get big names in your crew, to put together special effects sequences, to film on locations, all that stuff is really expensive. It's much easier to do that process for 2 films with 1 batch of pre-production. Does that make sense? So for example, Matrix 2 and 3 were filmed together.
Back to back, weren't they?
Lord of the Rings 1, 2 and 3 were filmed together. Did I just hear somebody say that they've shot a couple of X-Men films together, or Avengers films together?
They're doing the event. No, they haven't shot it yet, but they're shooting probably the Avengers.
Pirates of the Caribbean 2 and
What was
3
that?
were filmed together.
Yeah,
So
Yeah,
sorry?
Kill Bill.
Kill Bill 1 and 2 were filmed together, yeah. For slightly different reasons with Kill Bill, I think. But because, I mean, I agree that money is a part of Kill Bill being made. But I'd say that Tarantino also is probably now at a level where he can make
I
whatever he
think the
wants
latest
to.
Transformers were filmed back to back as well.
Wouldn't surprise me.
It looks like they were.
No, it wasn't.
No, I don't know.
Batman v Superman and Justice League will be filmed back to back.
There we go. So it's in terms of getting the same actors together in the same place with the same crew, a work process that fits for everybody. A workflow that fits for everybody that people get used to, and it makes the whole process cheaper. And you then have enough material to go away and cut 2 films. So yes, it's about money, it's about efficiency. I would say though that I personally hate going to watch a film that is not self-contained. I don't like this kind of ... at the end, to be continued ...
Yeah.
You know, whereas a film like Pirates of the Caribbean 2 is only half a film. You know, it stops, doesn't it? And then you just basically say, you want to know what happens, go and watch Pirates of the Caribbean 3.
It's like the 3 Hobbits, isn't it?
Yeah, they were all.
It's a bit like Transformers, it's never ended. The first one's ended it, the second one's ended, the third one's still going. Pirates of the Fourth one.
A couple of years ago, one of our students pulled out a list of the 45 most anticipated films of the following year, and we went through them, and 41 of them were prequels, sequels, or remakes. Only 4 of those 45 kind of hot films were original. That's
Just shows
terrifying.
you, like what,
So it's like,
like basically everybody's running out of ideas, and they're trying to like you see more predominantly comic movies now because they are still going, like people are still making
It's
stories.
books, innit? If a big book comes out, it's like all these Fault in Our Stars things.
Yeah, like
they're absolutely
Okay,
feeding
I
off
watched
that.
It's a guaranteed audience, isn't it?
The
So
major-
basically, what big producers want, what studios want, is a guaranteed return on their investment. Movies are expensive. You don't just turn around and have £100 million drop out of your ear. So what they need to know is that it's somehow guaranteed to come back to them. So Emilio, you're first.
Do you know when handed a screenplay to like if like a producer wants to, or a studio wants to make your screenplay for it, can you put it in terms that you have to write it? And secondly, did he get that job? And did he get any job on it?
I don't know what he's done since. I'm intrigued in that as a phenomenon because I've never heard of it before I watched that one. You can, but they might just then say, well, suit yourself, we don't need it. And what they will be trying to do is to get themselves as much creative control and financial control as they can. So you need to be a very, very big name to be able to say, no, this is how I'm doing it, that's the way it is. If you don't like it, you can walk off a short pier. So Adam, you're next?
Yeah, so apparently they're meant to be making about 7 Avatar films, like the Blue Avatar.
Oh golly.
What? Sorry, that even calculated when it should be out.
Yeah. That's terrifying.
To be fair, I don't think we could go any further with it.
No,
They've created a great world, haven't they?
They've created a world.
You can explore.
That's the kind of thing we should have just left.
Doesn't feel like it needs carrying on.
I say something I haven't.
Some films don't need sequels, do they?
James Cameron, though, isn't it? He loves his big.
The sequel to Titanic.
Sort of 2 points I'd like to say. It's interesting because when you shoot back to back, you have to have a lot of studio confidence because when you make a movie, it's either going to be popular or unpopular, and you can decide based on the popularity if you're going to do a sequel. When you film back to back, it has to be popular, and it's like. And it's the same thing, it's like this, one of my favourite directors, Kevin Smith, is filming 3 movies back to back right now as part of this trilogy of horror movies, and the first one has just been released and it's really bad apparently.
What's that?
Tusk, it's called.
Oh, I think you've learned that film.
I haven't. I mean, Kevin Smith has kind of gone off the boil a little bit for me.
So,
Jason,
great. Yeah. He's in the middle of filming 2 sequels because he's doing it back to back. But the first one's been released and it's not popular. Apparently, it's put in a ridiculous situation.
So what's the disadvantage, Joe, of filming back to back then?
If the first one's not good, then the rest won't be as good, so you'll lose your audience straight away.
Oh, no, you already spent the money. Yeah.
Sorry, wasn't Ice Age filmed?
Ice Age would be a different kind of
They
story
all
because
came
that's
out fairly
animation.
quickly after each other.
Yeah, different story because it's animation. What it'll be, because it's the same studio with Ice Age, is that it will likely be the same teams of animators, the same software processes, and because they've already, for example, once you've designed Manny, is Manny the sloth or is Manny the mammoth? Mammoth. So once you've designed Manny, you can't all of a sudden make him pink and put wings on him. You can't add in 2 more tusks. He's designed. So the character design process stops. He's already cast. You've already worked with those crew and cast members before. So they might come a lot quicker after that because they're successful. So the studios throw money at them and the workflow is already in place to make the film. All you really are waiting for is the script and then the animation.
Some sequels are just rushed.
Claymation. That's stop frame animation. Emilio.
TV shows can get a lot worse because I went to like a speaking with Charlie Adlard from The Walking Dead. What they called? He was saying about like on the set of The Walking Dead that ended up spending like most of their budget on the mid-season finale. So that was like only 8 episodes, and they had another 8 episodes left to go, season 3. And the second half they had to like reconnecting characters apart because they ran out of the budget for a different thing.
Dialogue is cheap. Effects are expensive.
Where'd you go for that?
It was the box. It was like the comic cabinet store.
Okay.
My mate, what was it? He works at Castle Green. He was, Aaron Smith.
We're missing one thing off this list. Well, we're missing a few things, but there's one important thing that we're missing. Sorry? Well, all of this is kind of part of planning. It kind of ties into the idea that your location might not be safe.
Health and safety.
Yeah.
So, was it 2 stuntmen died in the second Batman film?
What?
Really?
Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger died of a drugs overdose later.
Yeah.
I think it was either 1 or 2 stuntmen died in Dark Knight.
The lead guy died on the set of The Crow.
The guy died on the set of The Crow. These things can happen. A camera assistant called, off the top of my head, Sarah Smith, was being forced by a low-budget film in America to film on some train tracks.
Pretty sure she died of cancer, Sarah Smith.
This Sarah Smith was hit by a train and died.
Sarah Jane.
I don't know that. But the point is that she had repeatedly said to friends of hers that she didn't feel safe working on that set, that she felt they were asking all the crew to take too many risks, but that she couldn't afford to not work. And since then, they've actually created an app where you can anonymously report health and safety breaches to media watchdogs, I guess, in America, who then kind of come and investigate and clamp down on that stuff, which is good. It's just a tragedy that she had to die for that to happen. So, health and safety is important. How do we measure health and safety? How do we plan for health and safety?
We're surveying all possible dangers in the location.
Risk assessment.
Bingo. So, a risk assessment is the phrase that
Walk around, put your head around, see what's risks.
Good.
Well,
See
wearing
what's
a hard
risks.
hat to make it.
See what's the
Well, most of the time in stuntmen there is a big risk anyway, because that's probably why you have stuntmen.
Yes, absolutely. So a risk assessment is a really important document where you evaluate the likelihood and the severity of risks happening and accidents happening. So what is the likelihood of walking down the street and an elephant falling on your head?
Elephant on set.
Very, very slim. What is the severity if an elephant falls on your head? It's extreme.
Like,
what is the likelihood if you're making a film about elephants? It's more, isn't it? What's the likelihood if you're making a film where you've got an elephant up in a cradle, say, and you're filming it against the green screen so it flies? That all of a sudden becomes high. So, although I started out with something really daft,
That'll be possible.
we've got to be looking at levels of risk. What a risk assessment does is it kind of signs off these things. So it says, with your film, what's one of the obvious risks with your film?
Falling down the stairs.
Yeah.
Good. So, what can you? How likely is it to fall down the stairs?
50-50.
It's quite likely.
What's the kind of severity if you do fall down the stairs?
You die.
You're not going to die.
Nah,
You'll
hurt
but you might
yourself
sprain
in
an
some
ankle. You
way.
might break a wrist.
I don't want to do that again.
Okay. So, what measures can you put in place to minimise that risk?
Assess and plan before you go to it. Just
Assessing
to make
and
it-
planning is what we're talking about. What can you do to make that
Have
better?
someone behind.
It's fine, yes.
Alright, have somebody spotting you.
Good.
Yeah.
Have somebody, so Jared in particular, as he's coming backwards down the stairs, I want somebody to be spotting him. So as you're going, just so that if you do trip and fall, there's somebody who can just kind of stop you right there. Because I would rather that you shot that sequence 30 times and got it right once, than that you tried to get it right the first time, tripped and went head over arse down the stairs. So, with a risk assessment, that's what we're looking at. So you were talking, for example, about some comedy deaths, weren't you, in your film, of like somebody falling over. So we need to look at the risk of falling over and how you can minimise that. Yeah.
If you as a director or something, and you have like a big accident on set, would you get chosen again? If it like wasn't your fault?
If it wasn't your fault, then yes.
Because it was like it.
But let's look at it this way. If you were the manager of the stunt team and one of your stuntmen died on set, would you as a director want to employ that stunt manager?
No.
Would you as a stuntman want to work for that manager?
No.
So there are risks involved. And if it was because the director was saying, I don't care about the risk assessment, get on that ladder, then the director would be in deep trouble. But this is why we don't do that. There are some things that are not worth getting the shot, and getting hurt and trashing kit are the two principal things amongst that. Have we missed anything else out, do you think? No. Yeah.
I had to say a thing on set of Django, when Leonardo DiCaprio hit the bottle around the guy's head, he actually put himself and he had a big gap going on his wrist. But he carried on acting because of how long they.
Oh yeah, that's
Like white and some.
Normally in the movies, glass is sugar glass, and it's made of sugar, so it must have been fairly robust stuff to cut in, but entirely possible. I once worked on a short film where one of the characters kind of loses his temper. He's holding a knife and he stabs a book with the knife, and the actor wasn't paying attention, stabbed it way too hard, wasn't holding on properly, his hand slipped off the handle, ran down the blade, and it took him, I'd say, 4 or 5 seconds to realise before all of a sudden he just kind of went like that, and he basically had a handful of blood. That guy, his real job, he was a session musician, he was a violinist. He's lucky that it wasn't that hand, which when he played the strings, it was his bow hand. But he went off to hospital and didn't come back, and the film was ruined. It's not worth those risks. I will not even let you have a knife on set. You may not have knives on set. You can have a fake knife, yeah, but then you've got to make it or buy it.
I've only seen somebody cut their hand once and they were really drunk, and there was a smashed glass somehow on this like table, and he slipped and put his hand through all his glass.
Right.
It's called Jack Dixon, and there was literally 20 of us just putting his hand under like.
This is why you're also not allowed to drink on set.
Oh,
yeah.
is that?
So,
Where was that? Yeah.
Okay.
Was that time when Alex threw up?
The only other thing that I'm going to, the last thing that I'm going to add into this is something called a mood board. What is a mood board?
My psychologist did something like that with me.
Guessing it's like.
What is it?
Feeling?
I actually just got me to do like scales and how it was and like how I feel sensitive.
No, okay, that's not what we're after.
It's where you get like a certain, like an amount, like, say if you're designing something like a car, you get loads of stuff, like loads of pictures of like fish and other cars have been designed so you can get ideas from it.
Excellent, that's exactly what I'm after, Holly. So a mood board is actually really, really good way of you saying, I want my film to look like this. So let's say you wanted to shoot a horror film and you want all your colours to be really dark and drained and desaturated with maybe a bit of a yellow tone. You go away, you get screen grabs perhaps of other horror movies that use that, or photos that are like that, and you put them all on one piece of paper, in a grid or
Basically like that
overlap.
trailer we just watched in some ways.
Yes, exactly like that. And it's basically a way that you can visualise your ideas. And you can say to somebody, this is my colour palette, this is what I want my film's colours to look like. So a mood board can be a very, very helpful thing. Same thing, it's very good, for example, with costumes. So let's say that you want your character to be wearing a floor-length white coat made of feathers. What you could do in a mood board is get loads of pictures of coats made of feathers, bang them all together, and say, this one's okay. You make notes on it. You can say to them, this one's all right, but the colour's wrong. This one's the right cut, but it's a bit manly for this character. So the mood boards are useful. They're useful. Okay. Which ones of these are we going to do for the films you're working on today? Script.
Cast and crew.
Cast and crew already done.
Location areas.
Kit list is pretty much already done. Location. Schedule? What's your schedule?
Safety.
And to find out when you're going to be filming.
Okay. Health and safety, definitely.
Yeah.
Storyboard.
I think so.
Yeah.
Mood board. Shot list.
Mood board, I'm going to put a question mark beside that. I'd say it's a useful bit of kit for a bigger project. But I think for these projects, it's not perhaps quite so important. Shot list, absolutely. That, for me, I'm going to put 2 stars next to that one, because that, for me, is the most important one that you could do. But that's your working document. That's the one that when you've shot 4 shots and your head's in a spin and you don't know what's coming next, That's the document that you go back to say, shot number 5. So a shot list is really important. Questions?
Yes, that's.
So really it's one or the other of those two, isn't it? So you'll need to research your questions. Chris is available at 11:30 tomorrow. So we need a room set up and ready for him to come in and sit down. So you need your questions ready, and you'll need to be set up and waiting for him. Because he's a busy man, you're not going to have time to set up around him.
Which rooms are going to be empty?
We'll work it out tomorrow morning, because I don't know right now. We wouldn't set it up now anyway. Okay, what we'll do now is we're going to take a 15-minute break once we've spoken to Amanda, and then after the 15-minute break, I would like you in your groups to start pushing on with this pre-production. We're going to do that for the rest of this morning. Amanda? Oh, you want me rather than...
No, yeah, because you know.
All right, 15-minute break.
If there's a deadline to CV to get the draft.
No, yeah, I'm serious. It's stuff it. Like the first bit was like, I don't know where this is going. As soon as
I do want them to be keep listening. I mean, the main hub something else. that we're working on. I need this.
No,
You watched the film.
because I'm not a teacher, I've gone in and explained what we need to do. Have a conversation with you as to what the end requirement for this one is.
Right.
So
Okay.
they're not messing about, they're a little bit of
Yes.
and they need some direction.
Yeah.
I want to go forward, there's no reason why they can't get.
What time is it? 10:20.
Yeah.
Guess what?
Well,
And then I can carry on trying to
You go down to
So have you been seeing The Walking Dead recently?
I fell asleep on watching it. Apparently Carol died.
I was saying, though if people are interested, we have like film certain parts and it's always in there.
Can you go down to Canteen?
I've got one last question to ask, and if not, that's it.
Yeah. It's come down.
Private people, so that
really
people
have to start in
Here.
yeah, which is big, but phase and a half actually quite do some. Production 7 days max.
Adam, the scheduled shoot on the 13th of May is cancelled because I might be on the FT potential.
Yeah, they said I'm going to be.
There's only been 4 applicants so far, and the deadline was yesterday. I was one of them, and they need 6.
Yeah.
They're screwed.
Possibly.
They can make it too.
Yeah, but if they just say we're holding it open for a few more days for any final applicants.
So here's my deadline. I made it today.
On the website though, it says that it's closed.
Well then it's either they're not going to run it because there's not enough people, or they're just going to say
No, they're not going to stop something like that. It's like, it's national films.
Guys,
is this filming?
Yeah.
It is, yes.
is there any particular
You do
reason?
not have permission to record me, computer.
Well, if you hit this
It's still
button in the middle with the circle
Facebook in the conference rooms where you are.
Oh,
well, everything that happens is like.
How's it going?
Like,
Just think I don't say
yeah, yeah.
What you say to the casual chat?
BBC to actually.
So going, yeah.
It more extra action can get me a crew and everything. Just set the apartment and there's the MP, so then the MP actually camera and lighting.
Are you gonna
I've set them in 5 minutes. Negotiate that.
What's on the old one? If you want to stop that recording, it's like about useful. There's a little
I don't know if we're supposed to, I don't think we are.
Yeah.
Well, can I have a break? It was being recorded.
You don't need the rest of it, I'm pretty sure.
Do you reckon I should turn it off? Quite
Yeah,
quick?
that is, if you want to ask the time,
Yes.
it's up to you.
Never get
Chris, where is Simon?
Hey Simon!
Worse.
Really got two bags.
Where it only had 5 likes, which cost $1,000. Everyone's interested in business cards, but at the end of the day, we have people say, oh, how can you stop on the floor and stuff like that. And people actually visit space without even liking it, straight from the game. So technically, the people who had the game made were more interested in the game rather than the film, so it's like,
Oh, that's completely true.
So this time I'm actually going to focus it where the fans are, which is in London or Manchester or Edinburgh.
Yeah. Right, so you went out on the style now.
No, I'm going to go MCM, the largest UK Comic-Con.
Garage, please.
So we're going to go where the famous people are, like all the YouTubers.
Famous people are.
So you have like all the YouTubers, you have BBC actors and famous film people that are so.
Yes,
Yes, I understand that. I found
I don't know what I'm good at.
my Facebook page. I don't think too many people have. On the message board.
I'm not good at being a comedian.
You are.
Just because you laugh at me, it doesn't make you funny.
I've had like 5
What's the
people
difference between
who
saying
are
something
talking
that
about
people like to listen to
Oh,
being
yeah.
actually funny?
Having a like the page. Yeah.
I mean,
I think people
might
actually
laugh
doing
at
that
you
for
thinking,
nice,
"Isn't
to
it
be
funny?"
nice.
Yeah, if you know what I mean. Not.
It's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
not interested in all I'm saying. Yes, there is a difference.
Person's head fell off Fury.
As I was random, right, Fury is an unrealistic film in some ways.
Someone's head fell off.
On Fury, it's an unrealistic film in some ways. How many Shermans can a tiger take on at once?
How are we going to know that?
Well, 6 Shermans were made out of tin, useless, and put stuff in the front because the arm was crap.
Yeah.
I'll say it would take 100 Shermans per tiger.
Yeah, one beat one on Fury.
That must have been a good shot.
Wow.
That must have been a really good shot.
And the tiger was actually built so if well,
It
the
does-
ricochets.
Yeah. Apparently one got behind, right, this is the funny thing. The tiger shot the Fury on Fury, the film Fury, shot Sherman and it bounced. I was like, what?
You need to go over there and shout at them until this just wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, literally, a tiger bounced
Like
his side
You
of
go
the
to
Sherman.
see what I got to. You sorts out Fury, I sorts out the other film.
Right, and at the start, right,
I'm just
and
do whatever you want.
another funny thing, at the start of the battle when they have the fight between the Shermans, because there's 4 Shermans, it shoots one in the side and try and guess what happens. The top falls off. Literally, it just shoots it in the top and goes, whee! Goodbye.
With those sound effects, that would make things a lot better.
And then at one point, the tiger misses the attack, but instead it's the commander and his head goes off with the bullet.
It wouldn't just be his head though, would it, really? Hey?
It's not my documentary.
Documentary on what that comic on?
So the client is actually happening for once.
What? Is that the one that you showed me? You haven't got it.
Hey, Gary, is there any reason that's still recording?
Basically, instead of having all scatters, you know, like each other's organised and you do
Oh, is it that too?
questions.
Got a bit, I saw something.
That's better than
Got a bit, I saw something pretty ridiculous.
I'm good.
On the page.